this.
Yeah. All right, we should have wait till we get a couple people in the chat room so people can see my amazing graphics work. It's quite stunning, actually. It's quite stunning.
Stunning.
I want to know how many people coming into the chat room right now or on Periscope are actually seeing the screen and saying the words, "I am an FBI agent."
I did it.
If you haven't said it yet, you absolutely should. It's very liberating. Very liberating. All right, baby girl, we're running a couple minutes late, so we're going to just jump right in here.
No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, ready to go, Maine? Turn A cam off. We're going to be over here. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to StorySmack on this most historic week of American history. No, we're not talking about the showdown at the Capitol. We're talking about the 30th anniversary of Point Break. Some actual... All right, we can wait no longer. We have to bring in empty set movie maven and surfing champion of Des Moines, Mr. Rob Otto.
Yes, brother, yes.
They call him the Bodhisattva.
How you doing, Bodhi?
I'm doing great. One thing I need to let you know, bro, right?
Yeah.
Listen, it'll sting a bit, but this is for your own growth, bro. All right, I'm losing that. That's got
to be warm. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to have introduce things so we can for the audio part of it. Hit it, baby.
Absolutely. This is episode 62 of StorySmack, a podcast about stories and storytellers in the world of pop culture. My name is A.B. Sigler, audiobook narrator and founding partner at Empty Set Entertainment.
And my name is Scott Sigler. I am a #1 New York Times bestseller. And as I mentioned earlier, I am an FBI agent.
And back with us today, as you can see, is Empty Set movie maven Rob Otto. Rob, how are you doing?
You know what? All I need is some great tunes and some tasty waves. Oh, wait, that's a different movie.
I want everybody to know Rob is making a huge sacrifice to be with us today. He is a giant fan of the professional football. And Rob is,
honey, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, we did some really bad scheduling. But Rob's team, the Titans, does not play today. So Rob will get to be half in the bag, I assume, is what you do if you're a Titans fan. Tighten up.
Yeah, and you would have been looking at an empty chair if that game was going on right now. So
all three of us are drinking from Shaker and Spoon the Kiss. What is it called? Kiss of the Ocean. And, Oceans.
Kiss
yes.
my ocean.
And as always, this is not a sponsored thing, although it's sort of fun because we get to share a drink with Rob, and we're on different coasts, so that's very nice. Different sides of the country.
That is tasty. I will remind you. Hey, have you warned Scott that he cannot eat?
I have not.
The sugar cube.
You can chew on it, but it's inedible because it's too fibrous. But you can chew on it and get what they call the sugar liquor.
Yes, you can chew on it.
Last night I shot none of them in my pajamas. How I get in my pajamas, I'll never know.
Although, of some of the things I know about Scott's gastrointestinal system, maybe a little extra fiber wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing.
True, but to be fair, I'm the one who ate bad sushi 10 minutes before going on the last StorySmack and missed it. So thank you guys for carrying on without
James,
me.
David, Sherry, Nelson, who announced he is an FBI agent, which I really appreciate.
Cheers to you, Junkie.
Simon.
Hey, guys.
Oh, yeah. Matthew, look at all these great people in the house. So we're going to have a completely fun afternoon. Talking about one of the most awesome movies of all time.
This podcast is about Point Break, you guys.
You keep talking.
We're going to have, in a moment, we're going to have Scott do the movie man synopsis for Point Break.
Mm-hmm.
But wow, I haven't seen this film in a long time. And I'm sort of happy and sad about seeing it. Do you want to give us
It is one of the best bad movies ever made.
Yeah, and to be
the
fair,
best bad
as
movie.
many movies as I've seen, I didn't realize it was quite so bad.
It's
until I saw it again.
yes. Let's get to the movie voice.
All right, here we go.
After a string of bizarre bank robberies in Southern California, with the crooks donning masks of various former presidents, a federal agent, Johnny Utah, infiltrates the suspected gang. But this is no ordinary group of robbers. They're surfers, led by the charismatic Bodhi, who are addicted to the rush of thievery. But when Utah falls in love with a female surfer, Tyler, who is close to the gang, it complicates his sense of duty. That's it. That's the
it.
intro.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes. Simon argues that no, Point Break is great. It's great fun. We're gonna get into it.
We're gonna get into it, but first we're gonna do the general box office info for you guys.
All right.
The Point Break cost $24 million to make in 1991 dollars. That's $46 million in today's dollars. Back then, it took in just shy of $83.5 million domestically in its original release, and that would adjust to about $160 million, a little more than $160 million today. So it was successful back in the day. We'll talk a little bit about what successful back in the day versus what successful today means. But first, I want you. This is your shot, gentlemen, to give me your thoughts on the movie.
Rob, lead off with your general thoughts on this movie, sir.
This is one of the movies that if you ever want to see male testosterone bromances
Yep.
and why they have become so popular, watch Point Break.
So you're saying this movie
Johnny
started
and
that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This did it, right? Because this is, listen, there were other ones, you get into Rocky 3 with Apollo and Rocky, running on the beach and they give each other, right? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But this movie is just based, the plot of the movie is based around Johnny Utah, who has fallen in love with Bodie in a very heterosexual way.
They're like hetero life mates.
And I think there are several hetero life mate movies that sort of work the system not as well. I agree with Rob. I know that we have this listed later, but one of the things that fascinated me is Keanu Reeves sees that he believes that his character, Johnny Utah, over the course of this movie loses his morality because he starts to love Bodie, and he knows Bodie is not good. He's not a good man. He's not a peaceful man. He's not trying to get everybody to nirvana. He's not. He's selfish and shallow in that regard. He only wants what he wants. So I love that. I mentioned it before. I loved this movie. Rookie, you said you saw it 100 times. I'm not sure I saw it 100 times that first summer, but I saw it a lot of times. I grew up in New York, so I didn't know any surfers, and that was so cool, and I didn't know any of that. And I have seen it over the last 30 years for sure, 25 years for sure, but didn't remember that it was terrible until this time.
I also had a revised memory of this movie, having watched it many times in theaters. I think even on VHS. That's how far back this goes. Real quick from the chat room, Simon, I'm glad you're drinking a drink, and I will make your day a second time by saying your name a second time.
That's
Gareth,
the third time.
That's the third time. Gareth, welcome. And Kyle liked the movie when it first came out, and Simon Dawson makes another good point. Bad Boys is the same with the bromance.
And I was actually going to say...
Jack Coon, Coach Jack Coon in the house, Rob Otto.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
Coach Coon!
Coach Coon, I love it.
Prepo! Prep-D!
A couple of really good points. Bad Boys, Simon mentions that Bad Boy is the same with Bad Boys, and it is. That's totally true. I also find that... strangely, the Lost Boys, not at all, even though they're doing the same thing that we're doing in Point Break. There's bad guys who are doing bad things to the people in their town, but you don't feel okay with that the way you feel okay with this in this one. And then there's that, they beat up the Red Hot Chili Pepper Nazis, acting as Nazis kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's all good, and you're fine with that because Brody saves his bro.
Saves his bro. All right, Rob, let's get into this. Lead us off with your incredible movie breakdown, as you're wont to do.
So Rick King, who's the producer, one of the co-producers on this movie, this is his idea. It came out of his head. So he was in LA on the beach, and he was reading an LA Weekly article about how Los Angeles was the bank robbery capital of the world. And early on, when we first meet Johnny Utah, the stats that he says about how many bank robberies and everything in the year came directly from that article, right? And so King is sitting there on the beach, watching the surfers, thinking about the idea of so many bank robberies, and he just put the two together.
Right.
It's really that simple. That's where the whole idea came from.
It is pretty impressive, and I understand Ridley Scott was originally slated to direct this, but dropped
you
out
want
to
to talk
direct
about that?
Thelma
How
and
weird
Louise.
would that have been? Right?
Could have been weird. I can't imagine Ridley directing this and having any of the levity. It would have been such a darker film.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly, keep reading because he's replaced.
Let's see.
He's replaced by Kathryn Bigelow.
I got two in a row there.
Yeah.
He's replaced by Kathryn Bigelow, which is what I love about this. template setting bromance of action and violence is the bromance. It's directed with a female director
By a woman.
by a woman,
Fantastic.
and that may have brought out that may be some angle that it's hard to think about Ridley Scott having the same level of brotherly affection. And Coach,
you want to talk about that? Let me throw this in, Scott.
Okay.
Ridley Scott decided not to direct this movie because he decided instead to direct Thelma and Louise. So you get Ridley Scott doing Thelma and Louise. You get Kathryn Bigelow directing Point Break.
Yeah.
And I think everybody wins for both those movies, actually, right? Because who knows? I mean, you can't know. So you were saying.
Well, I was and Kathryn Bigelow's husband at the time, James Cameron, he helped perform rewrites of the script, but received no credit. Did he not get a producer credit for this?
He did not get a producer.
Oh, I
They
thought
acrimoniously.
That's not true. Yeah.
Oh,
He's
he
one
didn't
of
get a
the
writing
executive
credit.
producers,
But he didn't get a writing
didn't get a
credit, yeah.
writing
Okay.
credit.
And as it happened, Point Break arrived in cinemas exactly 1 week after Cameron's Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Incredible movie.
Yeah, and one other thing that's interesting to note about Kathryn Bigelow. So Kathryn Bigelow makes this movie, which is, is beloved and rightfully so, even though it doesn't make a ton of sense as things go, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it is sort of lighthearted in a way that Ridley Scott wouldn't have brought to this movie.
Yep.
But she goes on to absolutely storied success in her Hollywood career. She is the first woman to ever win a Best Director Oscar. She's the first woman to ever win a Best.
Beat her husband out for it, by the way, which made me very happy.
Her ex, yes, she beat James Cameron out that year. She also was the first woman to win a Best Director, Directors Guild of America award.
Okay.
These are huge accomplishments, and she does that with The Hurt Locker, which is exactly the movie you would think, gosh, Ridley Scott could direct that. He could absolutely direct The Hurt Locker. So it's weird how she grows as an artist from this very lighthearted. I mean, not weird. It's great. That's what an artist should do. But moves from this very lighthearted romance to this very, very heavy, also sort of romance.
Now, we are Coach Kuhn in the room. Coach Kuhn was one of my high school football coaches, everybody. And we are going to talk a little bit about football in this movie. But Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Johnny Utah?
Well, you know what? I want to backtrack a little bit because we skipped over the screenwriter when I was talking about Rick King. So Peter, see, I just did it, Scott. I told you I would pronounce his name right, and I pronounced it wrong. Peter Iliff wrote the script. King paid him $6,000, and so he had to work all day as a waiter and then write the script at night. So now he does go on. He writes Varsity Blues. He wrote, let's see, what was the other one? Patriot Games. So trust me, Peter Iliff is doing just fine. But Scott, I thought you might be able to talk about a young up-and-coming writer who had to work all day, get home exhausted as hell, and then have to try to be creative. I can't imagine you have anything to say about that.
There nothing at all to say about you work a job all the live long day, then you come home, the only time you can write. Although I used to write at lunch on my jobs and sometimes before work. The best job I ever had was support.
Other than this one,
was support rep for a company called Baseview Products, and I worked a shift that was noon to 7 p.m. handling people's computer support calls, and I was able to get up, be writing at 8 o'clock, write for 3 hours, go to work, write at lunch, and then come home after and write. And then while I was on the call, I got to play bass guitar all day, just working through scales and things. Oh, let me help you with your computer. Just sit there noodling along. It was a great job for 20-something.
Great job. Turn it back on again? Have you turned it off?
That was almost always the solution was almost always turn it off, turn it back on again. All right.
All right, so you asked me about Johnny Utah.
Yes.
I love talking about this idea of alternate universes where original casting would have happened.
Okay.
So picture this. You've got, Bodie played by Patrick Swayze, and then this FBI agent walks in that's going to learn how to surf, played by Matthew Broderick.
Matthew
Ferris Bueller's Day on the Surf, apparently, is what they were going for.
Well, and what's crazy about this is the thing that I recognize the most about him learning to surf is that he's pigeon-toed. And he's the only actor I know by his walk because he's pigeon-toed, which would make it a little bit more difficult to surf because your directional with your toes is important.
He couldn't have done any worse at throwing a football than Johnny Utah did. That's for
sure. That's true. But I can't imagine Matthew Broderick, leading the Ohio State Buckeyes down the field for victory in a Rose Bowl. I'm just saying. So.
Yes.
And this isn't just they thought of Matthew Broderick. He was offered the role.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
my goodness.
Holy
and
crap.
turned it down. Yeah, right, exactly. But they also Johnny Depp, Charlie Sheen, Val Kilmer, Willem Dafoe. These are all people that they tried out for this part. But Kathryn Bigelow, to her credit, said, listen, Keanu's the guy. After she saw him, she was just like, I'm sold. And honestly, I'm not going to direct this movie if you give me anybody other than Keanu Reeves.
And Robbie,
So,
do you know, did Willem Dafoe, was he auditioning for Johnny Utah?
yeah,
my
that's
goodness.
who they were considering at the time. Yeah,
I mean, when I first saw you write that, I thought he might be for Angelo, for Busey's character.
No.
Yeah,
well,
interesting.
I mean, you got to remember, this is, they
Yeah,
for
started
sure.
casting
Yeah.
in the late 80s.
He would have been much old. He was a good 15 years older than Keanu Reeves, but I think he could have. Obviously, he can do anything. He could have pulled that off. Now, Rob,
He might have fit better in the Ridley Scott version of this movie.
maybe so.
that's
Maybe
probably
so.
true. So Kathryn Bigelow really knew what she was doing, and then she also had someone in mind for the female lead for this movie as well.
She actually didn't at first.
didn't
right?
she?
They
Okay.
auditioned. You think
God, look how
surfer
beautiful
movie,
she is.
California, right? They interviewed. They auditioned. Buxom, blonde, beautiful, sun-kissed skin. That's who they were looking for.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lori Petty comes in, and she is smaller. She's tighter.
She got some
is
muscles going
More
on.
athletic.
Yep.
Right, exactly. And Bigelow said, well, damn it. That's who surfs at the beaches I've
Yeah.
been to.
Yeah.
This is the kind of person that we need. I don't need a bubble-headed blonde, to be in there. It wouldn't make any sense. And honestly, that's not the kind of woman that Johnny Utah would fall for. He's seen those girls all his life. He's never met anybody like Lori Petty and Tyler before.
Sure.
And that's when she was sold.
Now, the film was originally meant to be called Johnny Utah. And Keanu Reeves, when he was cast in title role, the studio felt that said Jack squat about surfing, which is actually true.
Yeah.
Also,
imagine seeing a movie called Johnny Utah and all the trailers are about surfers. You would be so
very,
confused.
very confused. By the time the film was cast with Patrick Swayze, they were working title was Riders on the Storm.
Oh my
after
goodness.
the famous song by The Doors. However, the lyrics have nothing. It's a lot of drugs, but that's about it.
And there's so much
And
drama
serial
in that song.
killers.
I know. So much drama in that song. That's so crazy.
So it was not until halfway through filming the project that Point Break became the film's title. And if you've watched it as many times as I have, you can see they actually use the words Point Break in the movie. Mm-hmm. And
So I will. David Lamb, you asked, did Lori Petty do this film before Tank Girl? And we actually looked that up when we were watching it in the last couple of weeks. And no, Tank Girl came first.
Oh, Tank Girl did come
Didn't it?
first.
Didn't we look that up?
I thought it was the other way around.
I'll double check
We
in a
looked
minute.
it up,
but
but clearly we were half in the bag when we were looking that up.
apparently we were
Our
drinking
fact
other
checking.
drinks.
But keep
Not
in
great.
mind, doesn't necessarily mean that
It came
they
out
weren't
the same.
filmed
Yeah.
at
that's
different
right.
times, right?
I'll look
Just
that
'cause
up in a
Tank Girl
second,
was
yeah.
released earlier doesn't mean that Kathryn Bigelow knew about it
Yeah.
when she cast her.
And although, as you say, the title does not say all that much about football, it is true that Johnny Utah is the protagonist of this film. I think that Bodhi sort of behaves as a protagonistic antagonist, really, because he's
Okay.
definitely the bad guy. And so when that happened, and then they picked Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves has a character who had never made it past being a quarterback at Ohio State in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But Peter Iliff, the screenwriter, chose the name Johnny Utah as a riff on Joe Montana.
Joe Montana.
And
Which honestly, until I read that, it never even freaking occurred to me.
Robbie, this morning I was reviewing the script before I sent it, and I said to Scott, like, oh my God, I never even thought of that. And I said that to him, like, Johnny Utah is a riff on Joe Montana. He's like, what are you talking about? Joe Montana was a pro player. I'm like, no. Montana,
no.
Utah,
The
Montana,
state.
Utah.
First
I didn't
name,
see it either.
state, last name.
Yeah.
And then he did another very famous football movie too, didn't he?
Yeah, of course. So Keanu Reeves would actually go on to play another former Ohio State quarterback as Shane Falco in the 2000 film, The Replacements.
I would like to point out that in The Replacements, Keanu Reeves' passing mechanics were far superior to what they were in Point Break. Point Break, I had to stop the movie.
I mean, he had 19 years practice.
Dude, how can you not teach someone to just bring the ball up, get some basic. He's supposed to be a Rose Bowl winning quarterback. And when you watch Point Break, if you guys ever go back and watch it again, watch the beach football scene. The man runs perfectly fine. But watching him, it's like he never held a ball of any sport in his hands ever in his whole life. It's very, the mechanics are very bad. Doesn't know how to throw, doesn't know how to move, doesn't know how to do any of the basic fundamentals. But in the replacements, he does a much better job.
Yeah, and for me, I did not play football, so I never noticed that until you said it. But I kept, every time they do that firelit football on the beach, I'm like, how are they running for 20 minutes? I'd be so exhausted.
It'd be very tired, very tired.
Running in the sand, it would be terrible.
And
really interesting to notice that obviously Kathryn Bigelow also realized how bad it was, because you never actually see. They always cut the shot right after the ball leaves his hand. You never get to see the ball travel for even 8 inches after he throws it, because it probably did not make it past the offensive line.
Looking at his throwing motion, about 8 inches is about as far as that went. They had UCLA head coach Rick Noizel served as Reeves' football mentor on the set. His job was to teach the actor how to throw, but he said Reeves was hopeless. Bigelow had to use someone else to launch the balls because the actor could not complete any passes. Now, supposedly, Keanu's a hockey player who hurt his knee and didn't play hockey. You watch him now as John Wick, very athletic, and the opening training scenes at Point Break, he's very athletic. But I'm not so sure about that hockey thing after watching him throw football.
You think about this. This is sort of early in Keanu Reeves' career. What we know now, which we didn't know then, but contributes to part of the success of Point Break, is Keanu as an actor, or at the very least as an employee, is super committed to getting it right. So we know from John Wick that he has spent an enormous amount of time training with guns. We know from the Matrix series that he spent a lot of his own time and money improving his own ability to do those sorts of tactical and wire-strung special effects and stuff. So maybe this is the start, and he's not Keanu Reeves yet. Not quite Keanu Reeves yet, and so he can't be like, all right, I'm gonna need like 4 months.
Well, I found that very interesting that the opening scenes of Point Break are him. First of all, Johnny Utah is not smart enough to put on a raincoat, which should tell you something about his ability as an FBI agent, because he's a terrible FBI agent. Bad. But the movements he does in that are very similar to one of the famous training sequences he did for John Wick that went around the internet, watching him rotate through a shooting range, firing many different weapons, and just crushing the target range. So that at least he knows how to do that.
Yeah, and Robbie, you actually brought this up, but before the movie started, Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, and Lori Petty, who are the primary surfers that they shoot scenes of, spent 2 months with a world-class professional big wave surfer learning how to surf on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. And his name was Dennis Jarvis. The surfer's name is Dennis Jarvis. And he said Patrick had been on a board a couple of times. Keanu, who grew up in Hawaii, had definitely never surfed. And Lori Petty had never been in the ocean. Come on now.
That's freaking great.
And when you
Maybe she was from Utah.
Exactly. And when you think of that, while you instantly noticed that Johnny was never an Ohio State quarterback, ever. Correct. They do enough passingly, and you get a lot of a break with the ocean because it's really hard to see somebody's face on a big wave, so they used pro surfers as stunt doubles and stuff like that. But Dennis Jarvis says shooting the surfing sequences proved to be a challenge for all 3 actors, with Swayze cracking 4 of his ribs during filming.
Ouch.
And so for many of the surfing scenes, he refused to use a stunt double, as he had never had one for the fight scenes or car chases either. He also did all of his skydiving scenes himself, and the aerial jump instructor Jim Wallace found that he was a natural and took to it right away. I love this. This is also information from Robbie. Swayze did 55 skydives jumps for that film, and we find out after the fact he actually did on the weekends and on his days that he didn't have to be on set, he went back to the airport and did other dives too.
Yeah,
which
awesome.
I wonder if he could possibly get away. I mean, he can't, but if people could possibly get away with today with insurance,
I don't
probably
know.
not.
Couple of quick notes from the chat room. If you guys listen to the podcast, you can't see this. We do this live stream at facebook.com/Scott Sigler, youtube.com/Scott Sigler, twitch.tv/Scott Sigler. You should check us out on those places. Nelson McClintock says Tank Girl was 1995, so definitely came out after this. And Nori Ashworth says, wait a minute, says that Reeves was the goalie in Youngblood. in the hockey movie Youngblood.
Well, you remember
Which Patrick Swayze was also in.
Yes, that's crazy. Now
They went way back.
You could play goalie. Goalie doesn't require you to pick up a ball and throw it. Not that hockey does, but still.
and
the lack of athletic ability was shocking.
You're quite bundled up there too.
That's fantastic. Thank you, chat room, for that information.
That's why I always played goalie in soccer.
But I will say, I crazy love this movie in this way. There's football in it. There's surfing in it. There's skydiving in it. There's an enormous amount of running around L.A. County in it.
This is a very X Games movie.
It's a very X Games movie that you don't even notice. Like, even though it's about surfing, it's not really about surfing, bruh.
Yeah.
It's about because even, spoiler alert, we should have spoiler alert at the top, even when Utah knows that Bodie knows that Johnny Utah is an FBI agent, and he shows up at his house in the early morning. He's like, bruh, we're going skydiving. Like, they go skydiving, which is the perfect moment to fix this, and they really just want to give him the spiritual experience of skydiving.
From a script writing perspective, it's clear the scriptwriter was working a lot of hours as a waiter because the bank robbers that the FBI agent has visually identified, knows who they are, knows they were going to be there,
knows where they live.
The bank robbers show up at his house when there's a gun a foot from his actual foot. And he's trying to like sneak it in there, and the guys in his house are not armed. Like, pick up the gun and arrest the sons of bitches. They're right there.
Or now that you know it's Bodie, call it in and have actual officers from the LAPD go pick him up at his house.
To be fair, he was banging Lori Petty, and he lost track of time. He lost track of time. What can you do? What can you do?
Still, call your boss. Say, look, brah, I got this girl right here.
Yeah, he did have a lot of time to call that in.
Here is the address where the dead presidents live. Super easy.
So I want to talk. Do you have a picture of Swayze you can put up with his long, luxurious, beautiful?
You know what? I
hair?
will get it. I think I missed a picture of Swayze when I was putting together the actors. So hold on, let me do that.
All right.
So,
while you're doing that, let's just talk a little bit about him, because he was the big sell. Nobody knew who the hell Keanu Reeves was. Right. I mean, he was nobody. But Patrick Swayze was the guy. He was coming off of Ghost, which was done just before this movie, which came out, which was enormous. Mm-hmm. He had also done Dirty Dancing a couple of years before that. So,
where does Roadhouse fit into this, Robbie?
He did Next of Kin and Roadhouse.
Oh, I love Next of Kin
movies as well. So
okay.
All of that came before this. So yeah, Swayze was the big sell. He was, the flowing locks and the golden abs and all that kind of stuff.
Golden abs.
But here's the interesting thing. So the whole Bodhisattva thing. So Bodhi, which I'm still not convinced is his real name, because pretty much all the other people in his crew, other than Nicholas, have a nickname. So
okay.
But Bodhi is short for Bodhisattva, which is a Buddhist term about, someone who is enlightened and is ready to go to the next level, but they choose to stay back to help other people get to the next level of enlightenment. So that just sounds like the nickname that someone would give to the character of Bodhi.
I never assumed that was his real name, the character's real name.
Yeah. For the longest time, I thought his real name was Alphonse, because during the first scene when they're skydiving, Keanu Reeves, when they're arguing who's going to pull their ripcord first, Keanu Reeves says, "After you, Alphonse." And I thought that was like a slick way of reminding him, I'm an FBI agent. I know who you really are.
Oh, is that possible?
Yeah, but it's not possible, because that phrase, "after you, dear Alphonse," is actually from a really old cartoon series.
Okay.
In the newspaper cartoon. What's the word I'm looking for?
Comic strip.
Thank you very much. Sweet Jesus. What is in this, eh? What did you put
it's
in
a lot of rum. A lot of rum.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, from an old series called Alphonse and Gaston, who were a couple of French guys who were always screwing things up, but they were very polite about everything. So the idea of "after you, dear Alphonse," no, "after you, dear Gaston," was actually a line. So there is not, even on today's interwebs, there is nothing to say whether Bodhi is actually his real name, and if it's not, what his real name is.
That's one of the tricky things as a writer of any stripe. When you include pop culture references in your work, that can become dated very quickly. And that's one of the things, like Stephen King is famous. He doesn't give a crap. It's out when it's out, and he doesn't care what it's going to be in 30 years, whereas a George R. R. Martin has no pop culture references, so his work will be presented as it is well after his death. They put this comic strip reference in, and nobody knows what the hell it is.
Well, and interestingly about that, your point to the timeliness of it, in lockdown, I've read a whole bunch of like older books that are very cheap on Audible.
Okay.
And very many of them talk about the benefits of their flip phones, or I have to grab the VCR tape or stuff like that. And instantly I'm like, oh, well, you guys don't know about masks and hand sanitizer. Like, you guys don't know what to do. I don't notice it so much with pop culture references, but with hardtack things like a cell phone or whatever, I do. And this movie, I think, has at least one some sort of gigantic CB radio that I thought might have been a brick, might have been the first, but it's way too early for the first cell phones. It's like 5 or 6 years early for the first cell phones.
Quick dip in from the chat room. Bertman 4 says, the skydiving scene. I remember the Mythbusters episode where they proved you can't hold a conversation while skydiving,
and
which makes Mythbusters even more awesome.
But we actually talked about that when we were watching it because, again, I have all the love for this movie, so don't hate me for this. But y'all, if you're watching this and you haven't recently watched it, watch it, because you're going to be sitting in your house where you've been for 10 months, and you're going to be like, if they're in the reservoir in LA County and they're running, and Johnny Utah is obviously a sniper shot, because that's the very first scene we see in the book, and then he messes up his already bad knee and Bodhi is running away, why does he shoot into the air, which is illegal in LA County, number one? Instead of shooting him in the knee just one time, give him the same injury that ended his career. Give that injury to him. Why doesn't he do that? And instead he goes, oh, and it's ludicrous.
It's very ludicrous. It's very
because
ludicrous.
Of love, bro.
Yeah, he can't.
If you love him, you shoot him in the knee.
He can't shoot his boy. I mean, I get this.
You could shoot him in the butt.
When you find your pals, you don't walk around shooting your pals. It's just not done, even though you're an FBI agent.
Could. And then
here's the real interesting thing about that scene, because when he's getting ready to shoot at Bodhi, they keep getting closer and closer. The shot gets closer and closer, and you see Bodhi's eyes.
Yeah,
that's not Patrick Swayze.
Is that right?
He was in Europe because Ghost got released after they started shooting this movie. He's in Europe on a press tour. So that's actually his double in that chase scene when they're running after each other. Fantastic. And so when they're closing in on his eyes, it's not even Patrick Swayze's eyes, but those deep ocean blues.
I did not know that until this very moment. Because I assume they came back and post and did that. Just like, let's get some close-ups of Patrick in the mask. But that's his stunt double also has this. There's a lot of goddamn blue eyes in this movie. Anybody notice?
There are a
this
lot
was like a Nazi recruitment film.
It's a lot of very tan, very beautiful bodies in this movie as well. Nelson McClintock has the comment of the hour. You are correct. So going back to our idea that this is a bromance. Keanu Reeves shooting into the air is an ejaculation. I genuinely love this idea. It's
Nelson,
really lovely. Yeah.
Nelson, yes.
I would like to. One of the wonderful staff of StorySmack puts together many wonderful notes about this movie, all the movies, and one of the things they point out is
this one.
The film inspired a piece of cult theater, Point Break Live, in which the role of Johnny Utah is played by an audience member chosen by popular acclamation after a brief audition. The new Keanu reads all of his or her lines from cue cards for the duration of the show. Keanu Reeves, yes, to capture the rawness of a Keanu Reeves performance, which also means showing up having not read the script and just winging it. Even from those who generally think themselves incapable of acting, the theater company also has done T2 and Top Gun the same fashion. I saw that show in San Francisco.
And?
Love it.
Way back
Love
when,
that you've seen it.
Kathryn Bigelow was there, and she would stop the show and come on and give stage direction. And
no way!
Oh yeah, she was. Apparently, she doesn't always travel with the group, but she was there, and it was spectacular. She could not keep a straight face, and they got a young woman. I'm gonna guess she was probably 25, and she was maybe 4'9". And
she was Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, just little tiny, and she just was having a good. It was if you ever get a chance to see that show, go. It's spectacular.
I do have to say this now because now we're sort of off the movie for a moment. I I was a Blockbuster video entertainment specialist in the late 80s, early 90s. This sounds fantastic, but here's what that means. I wore a polyester vest when I worked at my Blockbuster shift. I always worked Friday and Saturday nights because I was so popular. And I had to wear this ugly vest, and it said entertainment specialist on the back. And how can I help you? On my boobs, which they didn't plan terribly well, or maybe they planned very well.
Or maybe they planned perfectly.
Yeah, so it was I can on my shoulders, or how can I on my shoulder, right on my sternum, help, or how can I help you? It was terrible, but fantastic. And one of the benefits of that is there used to be these mass market paperback video review books that Blockbuster put out, and I swear they were like 4 inches thick, and they were like a 20-word review. And I got to review Keanu Reeves movies and submit reviews for that movie. So at the time, there were 20.
Mm-hmm. 20 Keanu Reeves movies.
Ending with, and I think ending with probably Little Buddha at the time. I can't quite remember.
Okay.
But I got to do that. And it's so interesting, this idea that if you watch every Keanu movie that you can, this idea that he sort of shows up unprepared, or he's just the same dude all the time, it is so clearly not true.
No, it's not true.
But what
and
is
he gets a
true,
bad rap.
Yeah, and I think the reason he got a bad rap is he understands his sweet spot as an everyman. He understands that and I don't know how else to say this, he's definitely could be leading man. He definitely could be supporting cast.
Right.
So he's kind of like mid-rangey. Like he doesn't care to always be Mel Gibson level. I'm only going to take it if it's huge. He wants it to be real and worthwhile and whatever.
He seems like a wonderful guy. He's so good to his fan base and everybody else. And
he's
really
the internet's boyfriend.
He's the internet's boyfriend. He's an American treasure. But let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, look at me. Look at me. I'm going to be the one to say it. I think Keanu Reeves is awesome. I'm a huge fan. I love his movies. He's a better actor now than he was when Point Break came out.
That's a perfect way to say that.
I think we can say that his skill has improved dramatically.
I don't disagree. I also think part of his skill set is choosing the right vehicle to showcase his skill set.
He's clearly brilliant at picking the right movies. Point Break, Matrix, the John Wick. John Wick is the kind of movie that only got made because he signed on, and it has become this huge franchise for him. And Bill and Ted, everything. You're right, eh? Mm-hmm. Him or his team are very good at picking projects, and if he's listening to his team tell him which projects to take, then kudos to him for putting smart people around him and listening to them. Rob, what else?
I'm not even sure he has a team, actually.
Probably not. What other cool things can you tell us about this movie, Rob?
So you brought up John Wick, and of course, the whole plot of John Wick is a guy going after everyone he's ever met after they kill his dog. Right? So there is a scene in this movie that will make John Wick very upset. So during
just
that,
one.
Oh, why did you have to bring this up?
Do.
The
You
internet's
have to do
boyfriend.
it.
Come on, man.
It'll make you feel better at the end. So during the foot race, Bodie, who's actually not Patrick Swayze in this scene, but that's okay, grabs a pit bull, throws it at Johnny Utah, and then Johnny Utah has to catch it and then punts it out of the way. Apparently, also the punter at Ohio State University. But you will be glad to know, Kathryn Bigelow has said this was actually one of the most complicated shots in the whole movie because they had to use a combination of real dogs.
Okay.
When Patrick Swayze picks it up and tosses it, real dog.
Right.
When Keanu catches it, real dog. When he punts it, it was not a real dog. They had like a stuffed version of the dog.
I assumed he didn't have him kick it.
No dog.
Especially a giant-ass pit bull like that.
Even though we hear that little whelp, we never actually see the kick. We never see the connection, which is fascinating because probably, if I had to guess, Kathryn Bigelow is so talented, or whoever her directors are like, yeah, that looks totally like a fake dog. We're just gonna cut right at the contact point.
It's one of those things. It's like the movie. Really speaking of Ridley Scott, it's like Alien. The Alien monster scenes with a guy in a suit looks so bad. When he turned it in, the studio's like, just cut all this. This looks terrible. And by cutting it and having that negative space, that's why everybody thinks it's so terrifying. The last shuttle scene notwithstanding, that creature effects are fantastic in that. But overall, a lot of bad work. The cuts for when he punts that dog, I'm not even sure if it's a half a second. It's real quick.
Oh, very, very quick, right? And it's so minor. But the good news is John Wick is never going to have to try and hunt down and kill John of Utah. So that's good.
Judge Wolf Jam says, props to set up. Did someone say alien? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if you guys, I've had this, I see, Howard, you're saying that you remember those books. I will tell you, I used to answer this question a lot. I will
The
say,
blockbuster books.
The blockbuster
Okay,
books,
good.
yeah. I would recommend, if you have never seen them, to watch The River's Edge, or I think it's just called River's Edge. It's a very early Keanu movie, but it is worth watching. I also think if you are kind of into this, I think into Keanu Reeves, and you want to see different things than you know and love him for now, I would also suggest My Own Private Idaho. That's a very heavy movie, but I think he does a wonderful, wonderful role, and River Phoenix is in it, right? But not too long before he dies. And I think that's totally worth watching.
This is a great note. Whichever one of you guys came up with this note, this is fantastic.
Definitely Robbie.
Let's go back to the main camera here.
Definitely Robbie.
The ex-presidents are made up of Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and Lyndon Johnson. The group die in the same order in which the presidents held office. Rob, was that intentional?
Come on, it's so smart. It had to be intentional, right?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Listen, if it wasn't intentional, Kathryn Bigelow should go to her grave saying it was intentional.
Absolutely
Because
agreed.
that is freaking genius.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead, babe.
Go ahead.
There's another great note here. Second unit director and stunt coordinator Glenn R. Wilder held fight training sessions for the cast on weekends because director Kathryn Bigelow wanted the actors to do their own fights on screen without stuntmen. And the fight scenes there's very little shaky cam. These are actually the guys doing it. It's not like watching Alias on TV. You're like, that is not that girl at all. It's pretty good. But Anthony Kiedis, lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, my favorite member of this movie, without question, was allegedly the only cast member to miss the training, so Wilder had his character knocked out with one punch during the first fight sequence in the movie. That's what you give her being, at the time, a very drugged-out rock star who doesn't show up for stuff.
But think about this. He's also, I mean, I know Flea is quite famous, so I might be speaking out of my depth, but at the time, he's a very identifiable face too,
because he's the front man,
right? Exactly,
he's the one
exactly.
you always see singing, exactly.
And so you
right.
sort of love that he's the front. Like it's this in your books, everyone is at risk of dying, no matter who they are, is at risk of dying. And I think that you would never think that Anthony Kiedis showing up in this movie in this year that it comes out in 1991 would get decked and knocked out in the first shot. And I love that Anthony Kiedis was like, right, I'm in. That's great. You know, like he was fine with it. I love that.
The thing I love about Anthony Kiedis in this is the Red Hot Chili Peppers are by and large a band about love and brotherhood and community and, you know, and identifying with their city and just largely being loving, peaceful guys. And Anthony Kiedis as a jag-off beach bully is fantastic.
A Nazi beach bully, because remember we find out they're Nazis later.
If that dude crawls up in your grill at the beach, you'll be like, I think I'm going to leave this part of the beach because this dude looks plus he was all ripped up. So
I have to take a moment for the people who are listening to the podcast. We do have a live stream. We do have a comment room, a chat room in there that we've mentioned. My brother, hello Jude, I love you. My brother, since you can't see he came in and the first thing he said is Robbie. I'm not sure if Rob can see the chat room because he's on Zoom with us.
I cannot see
yeah,
the chat.
so I wanted to mention it.
Thank you. So while we are on the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Keanu plays no favorites in terms of his favorite Red Hot Chili Pepper because he did also star in a movie that A has already mentioned. Flea also appears in My Own Private Idaho. So he does not have a favorite Red Hot Chili Pepper unless you're talking about a ghost pepper, which is 1 million.
Oh,
We might have to do a whole story smack on the movies Flea's been in because they're great.
I mean, I would love that too. Or the Red Hot Chili
There's the
Peppers
man.
because they do a lot of this. They contribute to several movies along the way. I will say this we've been talking a lot about all the sports, but the crew and the producers and everything did their job and also had some FBI people talk to the cast and crew to help them do that. This I love so much because it is totally true 30 years later or 25 years later. In his 2004 book, Where the Money Is, FBI Special Agent William J. Redder writes that he spent some time with Reeves to give him tips for the role. Then he says, quote, "Unfortunately, none of these pointers came within a million miles of the finished film," he writes. Turns out life as an FBI agent is not as exciting as Point Break makes it out to be. Nor is it very accurate. As Rita writes, Point Break is one of the dumbest bank robbery movies ever made.
Terrible.
And it totally is,
And
dudes.
what's that show, Pitch Meeting? You guys, after you're
yeah,
done with
Screen
this,
Rant Pitch
if you're
Meeting.
watching this on YouTube, go to on YouTube, look for Screen Rant Pitch Meeting Point Break. I love the Pitch Meeting series, and it is amazing how quickly they dissect how incredibly bad the FBI agents are in this
But
movie.
it's so many things, right? It's the first thing that happens is when Tyler and Johnny Utah meet is Lori Petty saves him from the ocean and then does this really performative, what are you doing out there, scrub? You don't belong on the water. And it's
Go back
insane.
to the valley.
Go back to the valley. Although that actually does happen, and when I first came to California, it took a handful of weekends of surf lessons.
Oh, wow.
Finally popped up, finally rode a wave, finally screamed "Banzai!" and rode a wave in, and never surfed again. Still have a surfboard in the garage. Still, 20 years later, have a surfboard in the garage.
Yes.
That said, I have seen, which you see in the movie, I have seen people be very territorial about their coves and their breaks and their waves and say, like, you don't belong here. This is not how you start. If you're good enough to ride these waves, we know it. You're not. Go the F home. Go the F back to PB where the waves are baby and learn to surf there before you waste our time, because we only have a couple. And I kind of get the rationale. Like, I'm going to come all the way out here. I still have a life to live. I want to catch the waves when they're good, and you're dinking around. It's sort of like going to a blackjack table, not knowing what you're going to do in Las Vegas.
There's only a limited amount of time you can enjoy that.
Unfortunately, they're kind of shit people who are like,
And for those of
Lori
you-
Petty does this
does
totally
it well.
performative thing, and then immediately starts to date him.
Immediately. I would like to say that those of you who watch this movie, if you think surfing is easy, I've never tried it. A's tried it. My nephew Tyler, who was enough of an athlete to be with the Arizona Cardinals and get cut just before the first game of the season, we took him for surfing lessons, and he couldn't do jack shit. And he's this 6'4" uber athlete who can do anything. He could barely get on the board at all.
But I will tell you guys, I know we can't travel right now, but I know everybody's saving up for their rainy day vacation fund when we can. If you come to Southern California and you want to try surfing, there are several surf companies. One is called Surf Divas. Divas doesn't necessarily mean just women. And they promise you that if you do their full day thing, they give you a 90% surety rating that you'll be able to pop up at least once that weekend.
Fabulous.
And I couldn't do it the first time, but I took Surf Divas and I could. So if you want the experience just to see how hard sometimes people work and it just looks easy, that's available to you.
It would be easier to rob banks if the FBI of Keanu Reeves and Gary Busey were after
we
you
need
than
to
it is
talk
surf.
about
Oh
how
my God,
bad
we definitely
Gary
do.
Busey is Angelo and Johnny Utah.
Let's talk about that real quick. This will be the last point, Rob, so go for it.
They just everything they do is wrong.
But
How's
look at his
that?
teeth.
If that's
Look
the
at his
last
teeth.
point, we should just end there.
I mean, literally everything they do is wrong.
This is one of the greatest Gary Busey roles next to DC Cab. Dell and DC Cab is hands down. It's his best role ever.
Okay, I'm going to give you a tiny bit of argument. The moment, oh Lord, poor Gary Busey. The moment where they finally meld as a partnership, when Utah keeps poking Angelo, oh, you're so old. What is it? What is it? Give me your theory. If you feel alive, fucking feel alive.
It's so ridiculous.
I actually think that moment probably happens. Like probably, I mean, not so dramatically, but like you either are my partner and you share with me your crazy theories, or you don't.
Partners for 4 hours. I mean, it takes a little
I agree.
bit of time.
I don't disagree. But we only have a few hours for the movie, so we got to do what we got to
And
do.
after Busey is already pissed that the new kid has him, babysitting a car that he knows isn't going to give them any information, you stupid crap.
It's just.
But that part I think is realistic, if not the timeline. I think that getting to know each other is realistic. Neither one of these FBI agents, and Gary Busey plays a long and storied, successful FBI agent, and he tells you every chance you get in the movie.
Yes, yes.
20 plus years.
When
Keanu is new.
When you were rubbing poop on your face, he was in Vietnam taking care of business.
Exactly. And
Exactly right.
neither one of them are as good of an FBI agent as I am.
Also,
Because I would shoot at suspects in the knee.
I know that most people hear this on the podcast, but for those of you in the chat room, if you have any recollection of being a child and rubbing poop on your face, I would like you to share that with us. I feel that is something that most people do not do.
I mean, I believe that I know as a babysitter, I have babysat a toddler who has used poop as finger paint.
Oh, well, but did the
on the wall?
Did
No,
the
on the
toddler
wall,
rub it in their
on
own
the
face?
wall, like make art on the wall. But
Yeah.
no, I've never seen that part.
All right.
Now, he does also say something about beating off to the Sears catalog. I'll raise my hand for that one.
There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, before the internet, which was largely made for porn, where the Sears catalog was the go-to source for many young men.
And I will tell you,
Many young men.
my favorite, when that line came up, I thought, I always went through the Sears catalog and highlighted fancy prom and wedding dresses, which is a totally different thing.
I did something to the pictures of the fancy prom and wedding dresses, but it was not bright yellow. I can tell you that much.
Oh, Lord. Oh,
All right.
I'm a
So
little- woo.
before we move on, we really want to magnify how stupid they were as
Yeah,
FBI
hit it,
agents.
Robbie. Go.
All
Go.
you have to do is look at when they're Anthony Kiedis and War Child, and when they're trying to bust the first four surfers that they think, and they're doing a home invasion. They've got the place surrounded, all this stuff.
Right.
Okay. Everything in that is wrong.
Everything.
There's no backup set up. It's
Nope.
literally four guys, right?
Yep.
They have no communication at all with Gary Busey's character, who's supposed to be the one I'm going to start getting you in the door just to see, right? He's got to let them know when it's time to come in, and no communication with him. And if at any point the lawnmower goes off and they can't hear what Keanu Reeves is saying, just the fact that Keanu Reeves opened his walkie-talkie should let the guys know.
Correct.
He's trying to tell us something.
Correct.
We've lost communication.
And you go in.
Everybody
You go in
back
immediately.
off. Right. We either back off and reset
Or go all
we
in.
fucking
No, you go when there is a law enforcement officer who is at an entrance point, and you lose communication with that person. It's go everybody in.
Well, and at
also
that-
four people going up against four bank robbers in their own home when they are suspected of 37 felony bank robberies and with weapons, and you send 4 FBI agents, including a guy who's been on the job for like 2 weeks. That's just nuts. That's bonkers.
Not only
send
that,
100
he was in
dudes.
charge of the entrance.
Oh, it gets
the guy
even
who's
better.
been on the job for 4 weeks.
It gets even better.
Okay.
One, there's 4 people. Not one of them secured the innocent houses around that house, so maybe nobody used the goddamned lawnmower. And and still, Keanu Reeves didn't pop up, flash his FBI badge, and do this. Which, if somebody did to me, and I don't even have a lawn, I would be like, I'm gonna go inside. I'm gonna go inside.
And this is a lighthearted action adventure movie. I get that, but when you go through how bad the FBI is in this movie, it's quite staggering.
But I also love that everything is bad in this
Everything
movie.
is
The
bad in this
FBI
movie.
is bad in this movie. The surfing is not great in this movie, except for the stunt doubles, And the idea that Keanu at the end as an FBI agent, 1, still has his badge, 2, somehow funded his around-the-world trip to try and catch Bodhi, which doesn't make any sense. Nobody would fund that.
That's government money, bro.
Which
Brah,
government money?
that's government
Which
brah.
government money? Because the
Brah.
FBI doesn't have the right to just send
The
one.
FBI will haunt you to the ends of the world if you are a surfing bank robber. You know why? Because they are an
FBI agent.
You know what? You can all burn in hell. This is a spectacular movie. There is
Nelson makes a great
nothing
point.
wrong with this movie. It's
Nelson
flawless.
makes a great point. So Keanu Reeves is struggling in the bathroom and hiding in the bathroom, and 20 minutes later, probably 2 minutes later, the lady in the shower is all like, "Ah!" and
whoops
knocks
his
him on
ass.
the head.
Whoops his ass.
Whoops his ass, so that maybe then one of the criminals can come in and break the mirror with the back of his head. You know what he never does? He never bleeds.
Also, let's talk about. I'm back on the bad FBI agent tip. If you are a law enforcement officer and you look in the window and there is a multiple felony count perp opening up a giant bag of weapons, guess what doesn't happen? You don't drop back down and be like, hey man, we got to get out of, like, if you can't reach the rest of the FBI guys, I'm sorry, FBI guy's going to drop that dude. Drop him on. You do not allow someone to pull out weapons and disperse weapons. Some of this I know because I have some wonderful law enforcement agents who are very helpful with the fiction, and we go over this stuff quite a lot. I've even been able to train with a SWAT team once. That is not how any of this is done.
Also, you know what's not done? You don't get approval and a flipping warrant from your FBI bosses without the FBI
from
doing
who? Your FBI bosses.
without them checking interdepartmentally to make sure there's not a DEA deep cover guy.
That's the best part. Also, when John C. Reilly, and I'm a little sorry, we didn't get any points about one of my friggin' favorite actors in the world. John C. Reilly is the best part of Point Break. And there's a lot of good parts in Point Break, but there's no question that this man...
yes, Rob. I would need to interrupt you. That is not John C. Reilly.
Oh, I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry. Not John C. Reilly at all. Who is it, Rob? I got a brain worm.
See, now you've got John C. Reilly in my head.
McKinley.
John McKinley?
McGinley, I think.
McGinley.
John McKinley. There you go.
John McKinley. There's also a middle initial you can all screw off.
John C. McGinley.
John C. McGinley. Thank you very much. I was 2/3 of the way correct. Everyone.
Yeah. You know, anybody's last name doesn't mean anything there. Scott Jones.
Listen.
Scott Smith.
I have a journalism degree. I'm a trained observer. I'm a trained observer of the human condition, and I guarantee you, getting 2 of the 3 names correct is pretty good. You can print that. You can actually you can go to press with that.
Oh Lord!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, baby, Rob, is there any other points with your knowledge of movies that you want to bring up before we wrap this baby up and go watch some football?
Well, I think just the most important point is the use of the word "fuck" in this movie.
Always important.
105 times does a cast member in this film say "fuck." So
I love it.
There you go.
I love it because one of the things, of course, I write books. I get bad reviews. As if you sell enough books, you're going to get a lot of bad reviews and a lot of good reviews, and all of that is perfectly wonderful. One of the things that is common in probably half of my bad reviews is just, it was a good story, but why does he have to swear so much? So when I see this 105 times, the movie Point Break with shiny soap scrubbed Keanu Reeves has the word fuck 105 times, it makes me happy.
And I will say,
Open
to
door,
end this,
baby.
I will
Open
say,
door.
At the end of, I guess, Bodhi's life, at the end of Point Break, Johnny Utah says, "Vaya con Dios."
Oh yeah, hit me with that, baby.
Which means go with God. And there's another. He actually says Patrick Swayze has this happen, right, Robbie? In another.
Yep.
In which
At
other
the
movie
end
is
of
it?
Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Who I like to call, I call him Cuban Warren Moon, who is the the Cuban colonel in Red Dawn.
What's the Warren? Because he looks like Warren Moon.
He's Cuban and looks just like Warren Moon. So Cuban Warren Moon. So the last thing before his character dies in Red Dawn that is said to him is "Vaya con Dios."
And I love this because this is another FBI agent gone rogue.
Okay.
He literally draws all of the Australian equivalent to the FBI to this beach that has only one in egress access. And then he lets him go in the ocean. He's like, what are we going to do now? How are we going to catch him when he comes back? And they're like, and Keanu Reeves is like, he's not coming back.
He's not coming back.
Ludicrous.
He's not coming back. He's not coming back, and I am no longer an FBI agent because I threw away my badge. All right, baby, lead us out of this. You guys saw, those of you watching at home, not listening, saw a graphic that came up that shouldn't have come up earlier. So go ahead, baby.
So first we're going to say thank you so much, Robbie. We have decided, the trio of us have decided that the next Story Smack will be 2 Saturdays from now. It is January the 23rd. And what we're going to be reviewing is Executive Decision. It stars Kurt Russell and
because it involves a presidency, and it'll be the change of presidency.
The 23rd is right around the time of the inauguration in the U.S., so we figured we would give you an example of a president making decisions, executive decisions, as it were.
Executive decisions that involve a gun and a badge, or not a badge, but a lot of guns.
So if you guys want to watch along, 2 weekends from now, we're going to be having this discussion with Rob Otto. Thank you Rob Otto. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend, with your puka
Always
beads.
a pleasure.
Your puka beads and your gorgeous mane.
All right, Robbie, we will say goodbye to you, and we will now phase you out. You're the best, Rob. Hey, man. Hey, Bodie. Thanks for all the life lessons, bro.
Brah.
Thanks for the life lessons, bro.
Love you.
Love you. Out. Here we go. Baby, let's finish this bad boy out. What do you think? Let's see. We are doing that. And that. Go ahead, babe.
So that is episode 62 of StorySmack. You can find Scott and I online. Scott is at Scott Sigler on Twitter and Instagram, and his Facebook page is facebook.com/Scott Sigler. I'm at @AveryGo on Twitter and at a.real.girl on Instagram.
You can find us online at facebook.com/StorySmack, which I'm in charge of updating and is updated maybe 1 out of 10 times it should be updated. You can watch a stream StorySmack live at facebook.com/StorySmack, twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, and youtube.com/Scott Sigler. We would love to have you here to join us, talk about movies every other Saturday.
And in addition to StorySmack, weekly on Wednesday evenings, we do something called Sigler in Place. Sigler in Place is a once-weekly live stream on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, right here where you saw us, and that's just us hanging out for an hour, talking about stuff and things, and getting through this lockdown.
And we release an unabridged, serialized episode of one of my very girthy, turgid, swollen audiobooks every stinking week. You can get episodes for free every Sunday via iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. Just go to scottsigler.com/subscribe for the links, and you can hear this voice tickling your ear canal every week, every Sunday.
Sorry, we do hope that you subscribe so that you can hear that lovely voice in Scott's books and more StorySmack goodness in the future.
And until next episode, we will see you all real soon. Big dating game kiss. I think we turn off. I don't know. I'm trying to see right now.
We do this.
Kyle. We're never quite sure if this is working or not. I did hit off. Let's try hitting off again.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is. One more time. Wait, no, wait. We got to bring Rob back on.
Oh,
Rob, ready?